Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani back with another episode of Rudy's Common Sense. Today, we're going to examine the decision-making of the Biden administration with regard to Ukraine, the constraints on it, the new issues that have arisen that were not foreseen, and the almost unexplainable delays in making decisions which may very well have created this war in the first place, and certainly has extended, without any doubt, the casualties and the damage done by it. Part of leadership is you have to make decisions quickly and decisively and take charge of the situation. Well, for 2 months now, Putin has been completely in charge of the situation, and Biden has disappeared as if a footnote. At best, a commentator generally saying things that displayed a great deal of fear, indecision, trepidation. Well, in contrast, let's say, to the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, who has shown courage, determination, the kind of thing that has rallied his people to, many of them, to sacrifice their lives for freedom. Whereas Biden, at almost every opportunity, has always explained what he can't do rather than what he can do. It's a very, very strange situation, and it is of exceeding embarrassment to the United States of America. Previously a leader, now following the Obama doctrine of leading by following, which many years ago I pointed out is just a euphemism for following. Leading by following. Leading means you're out front. Following means you're behind someone else. It's, again, one of the sort of Orwellian word games, otherwise known as lies, which now seem to be almost regular for Democrat administrations, lying to the American people. But here the consequences are innocent people dying. So in the last 2 podcasts, we laid out for Biden, or for America, a program of what he could do short of putting boots on the ground, short of military intervention, that would contain, in some cases, or help to contain, Putin's advances. So let's first look at the advances that Putin has made. And then let's see how many of these things he's implemented. And then let's take a look at how the decision-making was constrained by other priorities that appear to be more important than the Ukraine's fight for freedom or America's need to deter Putin from further aggression. So first of all, where are we in Ukraine right now, as America is on the verge of making, very, very difficult decisions? There's nothing easy about these decisions when, the possibility of nuclear war is involved. These are decisions that could, now or in the future, threaten the entire world. So as we speak today, Russia and Putin, I hesitate to say Russia because questionable whether this is fully supported by the Russian people. I doubt it. And there is some indication that that is not the case. But Putin has made, for all of the bravery and resistance of the Ukrainian people, Putin has made some very, very deep inroads into Ukraine. So looking at this map that we'll put up, you can see in the eastern portion of the map, that's the area that toward the top says Kharkiv, and toward the bottom says Mariupol, and that's the what had previously been known as the disputed territory. That's the territory that back in 2014 Putin invaded and claimed for Ukraine. And they have made very, very, very major inroads into that area, although they have not, for example, been able to occupy Kharkiv, which is the second largest city in Ukraine. It's a Russian ethnic city that previously was extremely favorable to Putin and Russia. All changed in 2014 when the Russians invaded it and caused unnecessary deaths and ultimately paralyzed the then mayor, Mayor Kearns, and it's turned into a extremely determined Ukrainian city that has so far held out and prevailed. And although it's surrounded, since we have warfare here that I think many have noted seems almost Middle Ages in concept, siege warfare, where you surround a city and you don't let people go in or come out and you wear them down, apparently for some kind of invasion later, or just hoping that they'll lose their determination. Well, that's what's going on with Kharkiv. Hundreds of Ukrainians attempted to evacuate at the beginning of this week, and they were immediately hit with Russian artillery fire in those areas of the city, which caused civilian deaths and a significant number of civilian deaths. I had two conversations with people in Kharkiv yesterday and this morning, and they accurately described that the city is not occupied by Russian troops. It's surrounded by Russian troops, and it is shelled periodically, meaning, I don't know, conceive of something like the Battle of Britain. And the person that I was talking to, I said, well, what happens when the bombs go off? And I was told they go into the basement of, I think this is a multiple family house, not quite an apartment building, but not a mansion by any means, not a small house, a middle class, slightly maybe upper middle class residence, you might say. And when they hear the sirens or they hear the bombs going off, they all rush to the basement and take cover and hope they get there in time before their building is blown. And so far, their building hasn't been, but that's just by the luck of God. I mean, I wondered during September 11, how the British got through the Battle of Britain, where you'd go to bed at night and you didn't know if you'd wake up the next morning, or if your children would be alive in their bedroom. And then you'd hear the sirens and you'd rush to the shelter. But did you get there on time? These are the things that they're going through. Kharkiv is one example of it, because Kharkiv is I would say one of the major targets, Kyiv being the major one. Kharkiv is a major target because it's the number 2 city. It should be a Russian city that Russia and Putin blew away in 2014. This was a city that supported the Ukrainian party that was favorable to Russia. Big supporters of the Ukrainian party. And all the time that I've been involved with Ukraine, which almost goes back to the time when they became free, this has been a source of tremendous number of votes for a pro-Russian attitude, for the pro-Russian candidates, maybe not to the point of annexation, but certainly very close to that. Totally different now. And it's something I must say that the commentators seem to miss. I don't think anyone has yet clearly pointed out that for all the reasons for the tremendous courage and tenacity and stubbornness of the Ukrainian people, much of it has been described beautifully and eloquently, and I guess dramatically presented by Zelensky and my good friend who I'm so proud of, Klitschko, the mayor of Kyiv. But I think one of the things that hasn't been explained properly is Putin turned Ukraine. Ukraine was, when I first became familiar with it, which would be slightly in the 90s and then extensively in the first decade of the 21st century, where I made a number of trips there, later on designed an emergency management center for Kharkiv. I've designed one from Kyiv. It's just never been utilized. Up until, I guess the Orange Revolution was the first break. And at that time, the country was split because it was a disputed vote. And the vote was largely 50-50, and the election was disputed, held again, and the pro-Western candidate won, but by 1 or 2 or 3%. So the country was split down the middle between those who were pro-Western and those who were pro-Russian. Now, pro-Russian didn't necessarily mean annexed to Russia, but having a very close relationship with Russia, as opposed to the pro-Western Ukrainians who wanted to join the European Union, wanted to join NATO, wanted to do essentially what Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia had done, become a European nation. That remained that way to such an extent that the presidency went back and forth between let's call them 100% Ukrainians and Ukrainians who were pro-Russia. But again, please let me explain. Pro-Russia in terms of a good relationship with Russia, not necessarily wanting to give up their freedom to Russia. In 2014, when the Maidan revolution took place, and the pro-Russian government was kicked out because it looked like it was going to reject going forward with connections with the EU and then ultimately with NATO. Putin made, I believe, a strategic error in his relationship with Ukraine. If he wanted to ever acquire them in some kind of a consensual way or large portions of Ukraine, as an answer to their installing a pro-Western government under Poroshenko, President Poroshenko, he invaded. Now, you all remember that. I mean, he invaded the eastern part of Ukraine. And of course, he invaded and took immediately Crimea, which, if you look on the map now, is the most southern portion, an island really, right off the coast of Ukraine, but connected very closely to Russia on its eastern end. And they took that and annexed it, and you'll see the map, I think, says annexed by Russia in 2014. And then at the same time, if you go a little up on the map and head toward Mariupol and Donetsk, and he put that area, generally called Donbass, in a state of suspended animation, not annexed officially, but considered disputed territory. And actually, in one way or another, war has gone on there since then. I remember being in Ukraine in 2017, the latter part of 2017, and being told by President Poroshenko to convey to everyone in America, but everyone in America should know war is still going on. And I was there for a totally different purpose. I was there to outline emergency management centers, which he praised mightily and thought was terrific. And I think they were terrific too, but the real purpose of his getting me in there, I found out when I finally got there, was not really about the emergency management center, which he listened to very dutifully for 20 or 30 minutes and praised effusively. But it was really to tell me and my colleagues and show us pictures of the war that was going on back then in 2017 in that area. And also to express, although he has been and continues to be a very big supporter, first of Hillary Clinton and then of Joe Biden, but to express his appreciation for the arms that were given to him by the Trump administration, and his frustration I think he described it as something like being given pea shooters by the Obama-Biden administration, which seems to continue into this dispute where it's almost always too little, too late. We're now, I believe, talking about finally stopping the purchase of Russian oil and gas, but I mean, that's 12 days into the war. That's 12 days of hundreds of millions and, I don't know, maybe billions given to Russia to support their killing innocent men, women, and children. How we justify that as a matter of anything, politics, conscience, decency, how you live with yourself, haven't done that. I don't get it, but I mean, Biden has learned, I guess, to live with being crooked for a very long time now, at least 30 years, according to his son, as expressed on the hard drive from hell, which unfortunately was kept from many Americans before they elected Biden under clearly false pretenses, without knowing about his long history of taking money from foreign countries, some of them really opposed to the United States, and in each case, according to his son, sharing at least half of the money, even though he was sitting in the Senate and the vice presidency. So if you look, you'll see that that area, which is the disputed territory, has been substantially taken over now again by Russia. The areas that go a little beyond it, like Kharkiv, which resisted the Russians back in 2014, is now surrounded, under siege, and being bombed regularly, I am told, and not only that, that is reported just about everywhere. If you look at the rest of the map, where you see those red flash, attempting to look like flashes, that's where the bombardment is taking place. Just going around it, you'll see in that area, there's been a substantial assault on Mariupol, which I do believe they now occupy, the Putin army occupies. Kherson, which we go now over across, heading toward Odessa. Odessa is supposed to be the next target, not attacked yet, as far as I know. And then we move to the middle of the country and the northern portion of the country, which is where Kyiv is. And if you look at Kyiv, you'll see an Irpin. You'll see the, again, there's a strike going on there. And in Kyiv, constant bombardment. Irpin, which is really a suburb of Kyiv, constant bombardment. I have a friend who's been communicating with me from Kyiv since the beginning. I've shown some of those, some of the videos that have been sent to me. An attack, which I find extraordinarily horrible, on a civilian apartment building, looks like one of the attacks of September 11 by Putin's barbarians that had to kill numerous civilians. This person communicating with me was within, striking distance of all of that, is alive only because of the will of God. That building wasn't hit. They escaped 2 days ago, and they wrote to me they had made their way to Irpin, which you see there. Now, Irpin yesterday had a large number of refugees there, and they were attacked. And they were given some options to leave, but the options to leave would send them either to Belarus or to Russia. Now, these are people escaping Putin. And these are supposed to be safe zones that leads them into the lion's den, which, of course, was condemned by all of the human rights groups. So the last that I heard from them, they had left Irpin before the bombardment started, and I assume we're headed toward Lviv, which is over in the western part of Ukraine. I doubt that the Russian troops would have much success with Lviv. That has been a extremely pro-Western city forever. I mean, virtually in Poland. And every election that ever takes place, that votes not 100%, but almost 100% anti-Russian and 100% pro-Western. So if they can make their way there, they probably have made their way to Poland. And I haven't heard from them now in 12 hours, and I am very, very concerned. And although it's quite a trip, and you've got to be careful about communicating, and I don't think they'll communicate again until they get to Lviv. So let's pray for them and for so many others that are trying the same thing. So that's the state of things right now. Several cities occupied by the Russians. In most cases, the main cities would be Kyiv and Kharkiv. The main cities surrounded by them, under siege, in very much the same way as war was conducted. During the Middle Ages. In case there's any doubt about civilians, I mean, you've seen the apartment building. I just put up this picture. This is from yesterday of a man attempting to flee and killed, shot down from his bicycle. I mean, this is a Western city filled with churches. It's a beautiful city. It's a city that if you go there, you'll remember it. You'll remember the architecture, and you'll remember the friendly people, the nice people. I do know the country has a reputation for corruption, and there's probably no one who's been victimized more by that than me in terms of their lack of uniform support for bringing our former vice president to justice for having participated in a bribe of their president, who now is on television all the time, Poroshenko, who received a massive bribe to drop the case on Burisma, and of course was bribed by Biden himself to drop the case on Biden's son and on Mykola Zlochevsky, an extremely dishonest Ukrainian pro-Russian oligarch who was about as corrupt as they come. But in any event, I don't hold that against the people of Ukraine at all. It's not the only corrupt country, my goodness. Our country's gotten pretty corrupt. I don't hold it against the people of the United States, except sometimes being too prone to being brainwashed. So Russia has made an offer. It's a foolish offer, I mean, from the point of view of Ukraine, but we still should mention it. And we'll take a short break, and we come back. We'll get to that and the options that exist and where we go from here. Think your homeowner's insurance covers home title fraud? Think again. And neither does your common identity theft program. The FBI calls home title fraud one of the fastest growing crimes, which is why you need to go to HomeTitleLock.com, America's leader in home title protection. Here's the problem. The deed to your home is the only document that proves you own it. And the deeds to all of our homes now are online. In minutes, a criminal can find and forge your name off the deed to your home and refile as the new owner. Like Jeff, who spent a fortune in legal fees after a thief forged himself onto the deed to Jeff's home and took out loans. Jeff didn't have Home Title Lock then. He does now. Or Deborah, who thought our common identity theft service would protect her. Then a criminal got onto the deed to a home and had her evicted. Deborah has Home Title Lock now. HomeTitleLock.com is your peace of mind, and the deed to your home is protected. Visit HomeTitleLock.com. HomeTitleLock.com. Welcome back. So there is an offer from Russia, for whatever it's worth, from Putin, And the offer is that if Russia has told the Ukraine if it will halt its invasion in a moment, if Kyiv agrees to give up 3 key regions. The regions are Crimea, which we've looked at on the map. We've taken another look at it if you want, Crimea. And then over in the eastern portion of the map, Donetsk and Luhansk. Those are both in the dispute, what we call the disputed territory, and it would change it from disputed to Russian. Crimea is already claimed by Russia, but not acknowledged by Ukraine or by much of the rest of the world. So essentially, this would appear to be a rather minimum request of really just recognizing what was accomplished in 14. On the other hand, it does recognize the partition of the country, and it is not accompanied with any promise that they're going to leave. It's accompanied with they will halt their invasion. Now, that leaves a lot of questions. Will they halt their invasion and continue to surround Kharkiv and Kyiv? Will they halt their invasion but continue to not allow people to leave the country? Will they remove their troops? Or will they keep pressuring the rest of the country so that what they gained in 14 is internationally recognized beyond Crimea and becomes now a fairly significant part of the country, and then go from there? And it is something that I believe will not be accepted by Ukraine. Giving up it would be like our giving up, Texas and Florida, or in exchange for whoever invaded us still remaining. And so it has been turned down rather abruptly. And I think that, it's going to continue to be turned down. We should recognize that this headline right here, that you might want to look at, Russian, this is genocide. We might want to recognize that this headline right here, Russian, this is genocide. This is a headline in the New York Post. The only newspaper that had the courage to print the truth about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. It has now turned out to be 100% true about their corruption in Ukraine and their corruption in Russia and their corruption in China. Lieutenant Colonel Dmitry Milikovich has held a press conference. He was captured, and he held a press conference, and he made it clear during the press conference that their belief was that they were sent to help Ukraine because it was dominated by a fascist regime, and nationalists and Nazis had seized power. Well, Zelensky is the furthest thing from a Nazi you could imagine. He's Jewish, and he's the son of Holocaust survivors. Not only that, the country is the furthest thing from a Nazi-type country as you could imagine. Zelensky is not an exception. The former prime minister of Ukraine under the prior government, which would now be the opposition government, was Jewish. And the issue of anti-Semitism and Nazi and all that goes back, 2 generations, if not more. It probably is one of the least anti-Semitic countries, certainly in Eastern Europe, if not in Europe. I've been there many, many times, and I detect no signs of anti-Semitism, and something I would detect pretty quickly. I did represent the United States on the issue of anti-Semitism when President Bush was the president of the United States, and dealt with the issue in France and in Germany and Austria. It hasn't been an issue in Ukraine, in my memory, at all in any recent period of time. But again, it's obviously just a complete lie. We see who's in charge of Ukraine. The people who look like Nazis are the Putin soldiers. They look like Nazis. They act like Nazis. They're as brutal as Nazis. They kill civilians. They kill children. They kill refugees. Not much distinction between them, except the scope. I mean, I don't know if the invasions of Hitler, the early invasions of Hitler, were worse or equal or not as bad as this, but I don't know, it doesn't much matter. I mean, and there is certainly a real question: is this the first of any number of other invasions that Putin is going to now go forward with, given the lack of real resistance to this of any kind and the cowardice displayed by particularly the United States, which seems to be 2 to 3 weeks late with everything. I mean, he was threatening this for months, and we didn't impose sanctions until after he did it, which were kind of really completely ignorant. I mean, sanctions are to deter, to prevent. Should have been leveled before, but we didn't. Exactly why? I think overwhelming fear. Well, the general said he and his soldiers thought they were coming in there to rescue Ukraine from the Nazis. And when he realized, seems rather human actually, that his favored boxers, who were Ukrainian, but they could be Ukrainian with Russian roots. I mean, like, for example, Vitaly Klitschko, if I recall correctly, his father is Russian and may very well have served in the Russian army. I think he did. His mother is Ukrainian. And Vitaly Klitschko speaks better Russian than Ukrainian. But he's about as patriotic a Ukrainian as you can possibly find. But his favorite boxers are two Ukrainians, Alexander Usyk and Vasily Lomachenko. And both of them were going to fight for the resistance. We're actually, engaging as soldiers or militia. And he said when he heard that, he realized that he must have been given a, propaganda. And then he and several of his soldiers got captured, and they asked for mercy. And he said he was ready to go to jail for taking part in the brutal offensive. This is a quote: "I feel shame that we came to this country. I don't know why we were doing it. We knew very little. We brought sorrow to this land." And Mikhailovich urged Russian troops to be brave and oppose their commanders. Don't be like Nazi war guards, concentration camp guards, and just close your eyes to it. He says you're in a tense situation going against your own commander. Quote, "But this is genocide. Russians cannot win here. Even if we go until the end, we can invade the territory, but we cannot invade the people." This is a very powerful statement by a Russian lieutenant colonel. Now, just to give you an idea how screwed up Europe is. So human rights people are wondering whether Ukraine violated the Geneva Convention in having him do this. Article 13 says that prisoners of war shouldn't be subject to intimidation, insults, and reprisals. It's almost impossible to judge from one video the conditions they face. Fools. First of all, it doesn't look like the man was pressured. But even if he was pressured, and children are being killed in the street. You saw the picture. I show the picture again of the man shot on his bicycle. You're going to worry about a little pressure on this guy when they're killing innocent men, women, and children in the thousands and more? This is one of the reasons we're in this difficulty. The silly liberal fools that dominate Europe and the United States. Imagine raising that issue about human rights Well, I'm glad he made the statement. And it does reflect a great deal of the intelligence that we're getting, doesn't it? It sort of is corroborated by the demonstrations that are going on in Russia, which I know they're not, the scope of the demonstrations we get, but, we don't even police demonstrations anymore, but we certainly don't shoot people who do it. And they do. So it takes a lot to demonstrate in Russia, a great deal. And when you look at the bravery of the leadership in Ukraine and you contrast it with the cowardice of the United States, where every single day it's no troops. We're not going to risk confrontation with the Russians. We're not, oh my goodness, if we have confrontation, what will happen? We're not ready. We're not going to commit troops. Even if Americans get stranded there, we'll just leave them behind. Part of the new Biden doctrine, leave Americans behind. Contrast that with Zelensky, who now is revealing his location. I'm staying at Kyiv on Bankova, not hiding, and I'm not afraid anymore. Or I'm not afraid of anyone. Unlike our president, who seems to be most of the time hiding in his basement in Delaware. Also, this is completely echoed by the extraordinarily brave and very pro-Western mayor of Kyiv. He's been mayor for quite some time. He's a great mayor and a great humanitarian. And that's the former heavyweight champion of the world, Vitaly Klitschko. He's there with his brother, ready for war. And here's his Churchillian statement. Every house, every street, every checkpoint, we will fight to the death if necessary. That's Vitaly Klitschko. This is what you call leadership. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll conclude and take a look at the constraints that have been placed on American decision-making that have really jeopardized America's position as the beacon of freedom in the world. It's disgraceful. This should live with the Biden administration and the Bidenistas throughout history as having disgraced the glorious history of the country that's been the greatest liberator in the history of the world. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code RUDY for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code RUDY. Well, we're back again, and let's take a look at where we are now with regard to the Biden administration. And they're being anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks behind in every decision that has to be made, starting with the failure to impose sanctions before Putin acted, although he gave about 5 weeks of warning. So in our last podcast, we outlined 12 things that he could do. He could stop buying oil from Russia, which he apparently has just announced he's going to do. Well, let's see if he does it. And if he buys that oil from Venezuela, a communist country, or from Iran, a country that uses the money we give them to kill innocent people because they are the largest sponsor of terrorism in the world, then surely we should impeach him, shouldn't we? I mean, instead of giving the money to Russia so they can kill innocent Ukrainians, we'll give it to Venezuelans so they can kill their own people, or we'll give it to Iran so they can kill whoever the terrorist groups want to kill, like Jews, like Israelis, like Americans, and others they oppose. That's what it means to be a state sponsor of terrorism. It means giving them money. I mean, the last time Obama and Biden gave it to him in cash. But what the heck do you think they wanted the money in cash for? It would only be either one or two reasons: to pay off the drug dealers or the terrorists. Governments do wire transfers. Are we so naive that we don't understand what this criminal regime in Washington is doing? This is what happens when you lead a life of taking bribes. So let's hope he means he's going to cut off buying anything from Russia. He's going to urge all the rest of the nations to do it. And he is going to reopen American production and in a short while get us back to where we were under Trump, energy independent. We can make up for that Russian oil, plus with a big surplus that we can send over to Europe and help them. If he does that, it would be the first smart decision he's made since he's been president. But let's hope he does that. I'm hoping he does it that way. So he took that suggestion easily 6-7 weeks too late to save too many lives. Number two, he should reopen the Keystone pipeline. That really should be part of the decision to stop buying oil from Russia. He should cancel the Nord Stream pipeline, which so far is in limbo and may get canceled. So we'll say that he's taken some action on 2 out of the first 3. He should make the sanctions airtight, which he hasn't done. He should expedite the admission of the Ukraine to the European Union, rather than what I read today, which is it's a long process. A long process. We don't have time for a long process. Let's act like Republicans now and not like lazy, completely unrealistic Democrats. Let's get it done like in Trump time, like today. He should designate Russia as a terrorist nation and impose terrorist sanctions on them. He should join the prosecution of Putin as a war criminal in Geneva. He should have his UN delegate move to suspend Russia from the United Nations until it ceases killing innocent people and engaging in war crimes. He should spend time re-educating people on the strategic importance of Ukraine and not have his administration officials say that Ukraine is not really that strategically important to us. He should do everything to help Ukraine, short of giving them military troops and putting boots on the ground. He should find a way to stop repeating that he's not going to put boots on the ground because he sounds like a coward. And it's been written up in every single European newspaper that he is. This isn't just Giuliani's opinion. This is the world opinion of our president as a man who's afraid. And he should immediately step up military spending. His goal should be, within 2 or 3 years, a 50% increase in the resources and the modernization of our military. We should not allow China to have a larger navy than us. We should make a gap between them that they can't fill. So, if in fact, you could do all the things that had to be done to restrain Putin, well, what would you do? Let's say there were no restraints. Well, you would first have full intervention. You would second set up a NATO no-fly zone. And if you couldn't do that, you'd do a United States no-fly zone. Number 4, you'd ban Russian oil and gas, which we may have done. Number 5, you'd remove them from SWIFT. Number 6, you would overwhelm them with arms and technology. Number 7, you would facilitate volunteers. Number 8, you would sanction China, who is helping to fund this. Now, let's not keep our eye off China, because to me, this is a move by both countries, and really a test of how much they're going to have to deal with when China makes its move in Taiwan. You should, as I said before, admit Ukraine to the EU, and you should begin and expedite the NATO process. Now, what constrains that decision-making? We've had several of these kind of done, right? We're banning Russian oil and gas. Maybe. Doesn't accomplish much if we start buying it from communists and terrorists who are actually helping Russia. We haven't removed them from SWIFT. We do give them arms, but it's a rather small amount. We've kind of discouraged volunteers. I guess if we sanctioned China, they would sue Biden for their money back. And I don't understand why we don't just admit them to EU right now. Let's give them like immediate membership. I mean, we control the membership to the EU. I mean, it's not exactly beyond our capacity to do that. So what is it that has restrained our decision making? You know, I like charts. So I made up this little chart. These are the options that have been eliminated by other priorities. First, we've got the green agenda, which is constraining decision-making. We have the basic left ideology of America and the US, which I would call an affinity for communism, socialism, Marx, the Marxist agenda, which they're carrying out in the United States, maybe a preference for Russia and China over the United States. I mean, they burn our flag, kneel during our national anthem, say terrible things about our country, distort our history. I mean, we've got a lot of hatred for the United States here, both in the United States and in Europe, all of it completely distorted as part of the manipulation of us to make us a socialist or communist country. And then we, of course, have the nuclear fear, the fear of nuclear war, which is a real fear, but it has to be dealt with and has to be conquered. And it can't overwhelm our decision-making. Otherwise, Russia will push us all around the world. I mean, there's always the possibility of their using a nuclear option whenever we resist them. I mean, this is the approach of Kennedy and Reagan was, you do it and you're not gonna be around to enjoy it. Our arsenal is bigger than yours, smarter than yours, faster than yours. We're much further away from you than you are from us. We've got a defensive capability you lack. It sure worked on a small scale in Israel. You want to test it? Vladimir, what do you got defensively? This guy Bupkis. I don't know if you know what that word means. But these agendas, the green agenda, which seems to me we should suspend for now in light of trying to save lives in Ukraine. But no. This green agenda is more important than the lives of the people. To AOC and who seem to dominate a weak Biden and Blinken. The communist agenda is just there all the time. And the fear of nuclear war, my goodness, I mean, if Kennedy and Reagan and Johnson and Nixon walked around like this, the Soviets would have won the Cold War. Huh? right? Did you ever hear them? Oh, we won't, no, we don't want, no confrontation. No confrontation. No, you heard them say, we have a confrontation. You're not going to like the consequences. It's true. They're not going to like the consequences. So these things have constrained our decision making, right? So originally, pretty much the green agenda prevented us from banning Russian oil and gas until looks like we found a solution by helping to enrich communist and terrorist countries, which somehow pleases this administration. Just exactly the love affair with the Ayatollah for Obama and Biden, I don't get. Or the press. Somebody's got to explain to me why we want to give money to a country that sponsors terrorism all over the world and then redirects that money to killing people and would like to see the state of Israel destroyed. And it's not as if we have no other option. The option is right here. Just open up our drilling that you stopped. A year and a half ago, we were energy independent. How fast would it take to get back there? And how much would that enrich us? What's wrong? What is it? This green agenda become a religion? Or is it a combination of the green agenda and the desire to move us toward socialism and communism that constrains that decision? Well, now we're going to ban it, but let's see how effective it is. It also prevents us from sanctioning China. I mean, Kerry is worried that all this might interfere with everybody going green. Of course we should sanction China. If we sanction China and we isolated them, we'd choke them. And we'd also let China know, don't think about Taiwan. Don't even get it in your mind about Taiwan. Then we've got on the other side the fear of nuclear war. Well, that has completely eliminated any boots on the ground, as well as our war weariness, frankly. And now it's also eliminating our use of a no-fly zone. So up until now, it leaves us with only one option: arms, moral support, arms, and volunteers. Volunteers we're discouraging for reasons I can't figure out. And arms, we appear to be kind of doing it the Biden way rather than the Trump way, which is delay. Like he delayed during the pandemic, like he delayed in Afghanistan, like he delays here. We promise things and then a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks go by and nothing happens, as opposed to doing it on Republican time, business time, mature people's time, which is like now. So it's a source of great embarrassment that we have given so little effective support to people fighting for what we stand for. And not only just people fighting for it, but there is a moral obligation here. We've encouraged Ukraine. We've encouraged Ukraine to join the EU. We've encouraged them to consider NATO membership. We've encouraged them to move in that direction. And that's purportedly one of the reasons why they're being attacked this way. If we want countries to rely on us, if we want countries to see us as the leader of the free world, we got to overcome these cowards and stand strong. I don't know. These people in Ukraine seem to me that they could be very proud citizens of New Hampshire. Live free or die. There's something ennobling about that that's way beyond all of this and all of them, and takes us back to our roots and what life is really all about. Life is about leading a moral life and a life of value, not bending your knee to a tyrant. Gosh. Let's hope that with this banning of Russian oil and gas, we go in the right direction, which is to reopen American, Canadian resources And we don't use it to just contribute money to another group of evil, horrible, barbaric people who are doing their own killing of their own people and others, and also are supporting what Putin is doing. Let's hope this isn't a bait and switch. I pray for that. I pray for the people of Ukraine. I ask you to stay with us on these podcasts during this period, because you're not going to get the truth. I mean, you're not going to find out a lot of these things by listening to the main news sources. Not all. You know the exceptions. But some of these things, I mean, even like the whole history of Kharkiv has never been explained. I don't know if people really know Ukraine as well as I do. But in any event, I want you to make sure you have the truth. I don't want to see another 2020 where we elect a president based on censorship. Well over 10% of Democrats now say they wouldn't have voted for Biden if they knew that the hard drive was not, as 50 former major intelligence officials told you, was Russian disinformation and lied to you. I don't know what's going on in this country, but it's really dangerous. So stay with us so we can fight our way through this together. So you contact rudyscommonsense.com. Hit subscribe right now so you can continue to be warned about the alerts. Go back and listen to the alert from the other day. It really outlines a lot of this and prepares you for it. And become an expert on this so you can argue for these values, because these are the values that made us a great country. And these are the values we want to pass on to our children, not the Biden cowardice. Well, we pray for the people of Ukraine, the people we know and the people we don't know. They're good people. Is there corruption? I told you yes. Is there corruption in the U.S.? And did we participate in their corruption? You're darn right we did. And people have gotten away with it. Big people, important people, and people that in our new system of justice are too important to prosecute. But most of the people are good people. Pray for them. They don't deserve this. And pray for the greatest country on earth, that we restore our place as the beacon of freedom. God bless America.